Where are we going in this world of woe? So much suffering and misery. Our hearts are longing for the endless home of peace and love and harmony. Oh, no more bitterness, hatred or greed. Paradise is the place we need. I feel the peace inside of me.
Greetings and peace. This is Dr. Laurence Brown coming to you with another episode of Interfaith Issues, where we discuss the issues of common interest to the three Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The talk today actually is going to be an extension of a talk that I gave earlier called Where is the Christ in Christianity? But to begin this talk, we have to step back a little bit. We have to step back to my childhood. I was born and raised in San Francisco in the 60s and 70s. Now, those of you who know much about American history and culture know that this was the birthplace of the hippie era. The flower children, as they were called, the hippies, started their movement in the Haight-Ashbury and in the area of Golden Gate Park, which were only about 3 or 4 blocks away from my home. So I grew up in this age of tune in, turn on, drop out. As described by Timothy Leary, it was an age in which people were turning to pursuing whatever hedonistic pleasures they wanted. And this was the time that the teaching started to be talked about, where people were saying you can do anything as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. Well, of course we know that that is not true. You cannot do anything as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. There are rules and there are laws and there are regulations, and above the rules of society are, of course, the rules of God. But the thing that I remember most from this period, growing up close to the epicenter of the hippie movement, was the what were called the Jesus freaks. The Jesus freaks were the hippies who were devoted to emulating the example of Jesus Christ. As a matter of fact, there was one house of worship nearby called the House of Peace and Love, which was a non-denominational house devoted to emulating the example of Jesus Christ and promoting the values of peace and love in society. Well, why do I start upon this talk? The reason I choose this as a beginning is because I noticed with interest that these people who were trying to emulate the example of Jesus Christ, they were trying to look like he looked, live as he lived, and promote the values that he reportedly taught in the Bible, these people basically became virtual outcasts from the society that I lived in. Now, part of that might have been the time, part of it might have been the sensitivities to the hippies and the fact that they were sort of on the fringe of society. But since that time, if a person is too religious, if a person is too visibly religious, they almost seem to become a social outcast. Now, since that time, I grew up to about the age of 35, living in a society that did not really promote very strong religious values, at least in the circle that I was living in. And it wasn't until around the age of 35 that I became religiously introspective, religiously serious. It wasn't until that age that I started to investigate religion. As I investigated religion, one of the things that really disturbed me was the fact that I would go to, well, to begin with, I started learning first about Judaism. and then Christianity. And what disturbed me was that I would look at the examples that people were setting for themselves, for their families, for their children, and I would be disturbed by the fact that in many cases they were not exemplifying the values of the prophet they professed to follow. In the Christian churches in particular, I remember going to the Christian churches of a variety of sects and looking around and thinking, where in all of this do I find the example of Jesus Christ? Where do I find the appearance, the manners, the teachings? Now, let me give an example. Everybody out there, if you can take a moment, just close your eyes and make a picture in your mind of what you imagine Jesus Christ to have looked like. Now, that picture is going to be the product of what you have seen in paintings, what you have seen in statues, what you have seen in stained glass, what you have seen in murals, but I can practically promise you that whatever you have seen and wherever you have seen it, Jesus Christ had something that most Christians don't have. And if you are honest with the picture that you are looking at in your mind, that thing that you are seeing is a beard. Very few Christians, in my experience, wear beards anymore. If we practice the same exercise, close our eyes, imagine the mother of Jesus, Mary, and draw a mental picture of Mary, and think real hard, and be honest with ourselves and say, what did her hair look like? Well, what did her hair look like? It is difficult to imagine because practically every painting, every mosaic, every statue shows Mary covered, wearing a headscarf. Now, of course, it goes beyond this.